Friends, welcome back. Let's get into the Dinar news. So I'm going to show you news articles now from Substack where reside and take the time to put a lot of thorough analysis around each article to give you a summary on it and kind of show you how it's linked to, at the end of the day, show it's how it's in a way linked to going international. So anyway, and just again, I'm on Substack and I'll post a link for that. So, all right, let's get started here. So, and hopefully one thing I recommend everybody does is make sure you guys are subscribed to me on YouTube. Reason why is if I ever leave a certain platform, do something, go somewhere else, I can use YouTube as a secondary backup form of communication if something's wrong with whatever my current primary is, such as in this case Substack. If I ever left Substack, I could actually take the time to call you or to communicate with you guys on YouTube as a secondary. Okay, so always make sure you're subscribed to me on YouTube. It's a perfect kind of backup secondary form of communication. It's just on platforms like Substack, I can do a lot more and give you a lot more detail with our information, and I think that's important. So as of this morning, the first article I want to discuss with you is this one right here on the screen, okay? Mark Savaya is part of the Trump envoy between the United States and Iraq. This is critical. Here's why. I needed to see some stuff on this. Let's talk about this for a second. There's some things that are coming out now. One thing I've learned as a news person, as a news chaser, when they put stuff in the news such as this, and they give you a very lack of minimal details, or that's all they give you is minimal details. They're not going to give you dates. They're hiding dates from you. In this case, they've been hiding the date as to when Mark Savaya is going to go to Iraq. Okay, in this article from today, they just put a critical piece to the puzzle in this. And this is why I want to introduce this to you. The last thing they told us was about roughly 3 weeks ago. They said Mark Savaya would be heading from the United States, because again, he's part of the Trump's envoy, that he would be heading to Iraq within about the next 2 weeks. But that was 3 weeks ago, and the 2 weeks have kind of come and gone. Again, giving inaccurate, misleading information and not the date. And then the very next piece to this that they provided after this was they said, okay, he'll be heading there after Christmas. Well, remember, this next weekend is after not Thanksgiving, Christmas. So again, they said he'd be heading there after Christmas. This next weekend will be after Christmas. This is all important to me. Now, here's the critical piece they put in this. Savaya travels to Baghdad to discuss the nature of the relationship between Washington and Baghdad in the next phase. That little phrase that they've been using aggressively since mid-November of the next phase, to me that's critical, because that means in the next phase means when they've gone and have become international. That's a statement of becoming or have transitioned to becoming international. So that next phase is, so they're saying that basically he's going there when Iraq has achieved that next phase status of going international. Another reason he's going there is the U.S. is going to be giving Iraq money. But they're using the money as a bartering tool, that they're basically telling Iraq, hey, once you remove your Iranian militias, that's when we're going to give you this money. Mark Savaya is going there to work on that bartering agreement, saying, hey, once you've got your Iranian militias out, because we're going to reduce the Iranian influence here, you're not going to have any more armed Iranian militias, that's when we'll give you the money. So again, this is a bartering tool. But anyway, two critical pieces. They're hiding the actual date from us when he's going there. All we have right now is after Christmas, and now they're using words like in the next phase, meaning that that Savaya will be going there to discuss the nature of the relationship between Washington and Iraq in Baghdad when Iraq is international. Okay, so you want to know when the rate's going to change? It'll happen in close proximity to when Savaya is going to Iraq when they're international. So again, that to me personally, as a news person and that analyzes, that to me is a very critical piece in this as to what I'm looking for right now. I need to know the date when Savaya is going to Iraq. So I'm chasing this aspect aggressively. I want to know the date when he's going to Iraq. All we have right now is after Christmas. Just wanted to show that to you guys, okay? We've got a bunch to go through here. Just wanted to show you that to you guys first. That's very critical. Here's another very generic piece on that. It says Trump's envoy to Iraq welcomes factions, agreement to disarm. That's what I told you guys. It says agreements to disarm. That means the Iranian militias. Intentions alone are not enough. But again, this has to do with the United States was going to give Iraq money. Here's some summary key points on that. Not overall, not a real critical article, okay? Not critical relating towards the rate change or going internet. It happens, all of these negotiation agreements happens when Iraq is international, like the previous article just said, when Iraq's in the next phase, okay? But leading up to the rate change, that's not a critical puzzle piece to us. Coinciding with the new year, a source reveals to Alpharat News the date for dispersing salaries. There are some content creators that put a huge emphasis on this. To me, I'm not going to put a huge emphasis on this, and here's why. Until they have a budget, per the federal court, the salaries have to be paid. Period. End of story. Okay? They're going to get paid whether there's a budget in place or not. If there's not a budget in place, they very simply use the FML, the financial management law. That's why, and they have to be paid regardless of whether they have a budget in place or not per the federal court. So again, I don't see a reason to put a huge emphasis on this the way that others might. It has nothing to do with the timing of the rate change because the federal court said those will be paid. The Ministry of Transport announces the advanced completion rates for the land and rail designs of the development road. Now, remember they told us regarding the development road, which also in this case, they're mentioning development road, but they're also showing you a picture of the Grand Port of Faw. Now, one of the things they said in this is that the Grand Port of Faw, like the first phase of it, will be done, complete, and ready by the end of this year of 25. What does that mean? That means they'll be ready to jump into trade regarding phase 1 of the port at the beginning of the year. Well, okay, so that means working and trading with foreign currency, and also that's an aspect of the banking reforms. Okay, so see how the banking reforms are timed with the aspect of trade along with the aspect of completing phase 1 of the Grand Port of Faw? Not coincidental, right? So again, all of that has to do with foreign currency trade. So anyway, on this it says major progress, development, road designs, railway designs, 87% complete, highway design, 73% complete, and so forth. And then there's other things. What does this have to do with going international? It directly has to do with Iraq going international. Physical integration into the global trade networks, institutional credibility with global investors, precondition for international finance and banking. There you guys go. Very critical to going international. Okay. Again, Iraqi state-owned banks suspend operations until the beginning of next year. There might be other content creators that that emphasize this or make it critical from their studies. I'm not. Here's why. This to me is not critical. For one, it's not all of the banks in Iraq. This is only state-owned banks. If this was critical to redenominating the currency, which means basically replacing the large notes with small notes, deleting the zeros or changing the rate, all that, I would do a deep dive analysis on this. It's not. This is only talking about the state-owned banks, not all the banks. Again, so if this was, again, something that had to do with replacing currency notes, that would be a specific step among all the banks, so you would see all the banks adhering to these steps and actions. You don't. It's state-owned banks. And by the way, they do this at the end of every year. It's kind of the normal path that they do. So not critical, not a concern. We're not going to focus on this, okay? Advisor to Sudani. We have not yet reached an agreement with the Kurdistan region on the path of development. They're getting there. They're getting there. They'll be very close, okay? They've got a lot of critical aspects, but again, they need to negotiate and barter with Kurdistan in this case. Not a critical article to our studies, though. Expert, artificial intelligence provides a safe environment for investors in the stock market. Now, on this one here, now remember too, it was about 2-3 weeks ago that they said at the beginning of next year that their Iraq's ISX stock exchange was going to become an online tradable platform. Okay, if something's tradable online, such as a stock market, that means it can be worked with or utilized around the world. That hence becoming international. So just food for thought on that. I don't know if you guys saw that. Anyway. So again, expert artificial intelligence provides a safe environment for investors in the stock market. Again, artificial intelligence, that's an internet web-based function, right? But again, they did say in the last 2-3 weeks that they were going international at the very beginning of the year. Right here, AI adoption in the Iraq Stock Exchange, ISX, artificial intelligence. Let's look at, does this have anything to go with Iraq going international? Yes, directly, but on the capital markets side rather than the currency side, okay? So again, there's and it's a stock market internationalization before currency internationalization. And that's kind of what they're doing right here. They're positioning the stock market to become international, like I said, online tradable around the beginning of next year. And they're doing that before the currency. So again, it's all coming together at the right time. Here's another piece I found to the puzzle. It says the ISC approves rules for Iraq/Abu Dhabi trading platform. This is from October 23rd of this year. It says the Iraq Securities Commission has approved the membership requirements for Iraq brokerages firms to trade through the Tabadul platform on the Abu Dhabi Securities, the ADX, as well as the foreign brokerages firms to trade via the platform, the ISX. Again, now that's cross trading right there. That has everything to do with going international. This was approved back on October 23rd, okay? So, or around there is when it was posted in the media. All right, next information. The Ports Company celebrates the completion of the installation of the submerged tunnel sections of the Grand Port of Faw. Now remember, we're not going to turn to this. They told us that phase 1 towards trades and import of the Grand Port of Faw would be done and complete around the very end of this year. In other words, preparation for the beginning of when they're going international, like I told you at the beginning of 2026, okay? That's all that is. So that's just that. Again, I keep showing you from so many different angles that they're preparing to go international. Next article here. Let's open this up. All right, 2 terms. Government will be formed quickly. That's what they keep showing you. And that's one of the things I've been trying to suggest to you is if the rate doesn't change before their first session of Parliament on the 29th, what you want to focus on is, does the current Speaker of Parliament get reinstated for a second term? Okay? Because if he does, most likely so will there's a good chance the President and the Prime Minister will be as well. Okay? Pushing for pushing towards a faster completion of Iraq's overall elections. Yes, we all know they don't do anything fast, but regarding the elections so far have been completing faster in overall record time than they ever have. So, hold on here. I was trying to see. All right. So anyway, this article just simply talks about, it says, it says, in their conservatives, Iraqis in Baghdad support al-Sudani's candidacy for a second term. This article is suggesting that they're pushing for Sudani for a second term, and that's what I've been trying to emphasize to you guys. Don't need to tear into the whole article. Just wanted you to see how things are pushing more towards a second term, at least for the president, okay? All right, Iraq and Iran discuss activating the International Transport System, TIR. Again, this has to do with trade, import, export, all that, coming around the beginning of the year. Here's some key points. Let's see, does this have anything to do with Iraq going international? Yes, directly and materially. It says, at the trade integration level, TIR is a UN, United Nations-backed international convention used by over 70 countries. It integrates Iraq into global transit, logistics, and network. And obviously, it means working, trading against foreign currencies, all that. So yeah, critical piece to the puzzle, along with the timing of it. Because when you study, you got to look at the timing of stuff. That tells you when things might be implemented and happen, kind of how I've been suggesting to you that the beginning of the new year of 26 is when Iraq's going international. That's why the UN and the US are exiting out by the end of this year of 25, because the new international beginning starts beginning of 26. Very simple. Okay. Right here, after the rate change, a government advisor expects the water MOU, I think this is probably with the country of Turkey, yep, to enter into force soon. Again, it's waiting for the rate to change. That's why it's pending, like many other things. And as of today, before I go any further, in today's news, we have quite a bit of articles. They're wording things to you from two different angles, okay? There's things in today's news that said, hey, we're going to do this on January 1st. And then there's other articles that said, we're going to do this in early or at the beginning of 26, okay? Things that are worded like early 26, beginning of 26, those items mean that they're waiting for the rate to change to implement it. And then the other items, which again has an aspect of them transitioning to going international, but they tell you they're going to do it January 1st. That item is not sensitive to the rate changing. It's that simple, okay? That's why they word things in the way that they do. Right here, here's one for you on that as an example as to exactly what I just said. Early 26, going international rate change. That's me. But right here, here's the title of the article highlighted blue for you. Early 2026, advanced customs declaration system to be implemented. Again, this is requiring the rate to change to implement it, okay? And so they're not going to give you the date for that. They're not. They will not, because it's sensitive to the rate changing, okay? And all the notes and everything are on there. Now, next information. Parliamentary Finance Committee calls on the next government to work on boosting non-oil revenues. Again, that means, and that's critical to the WTO. Reason why? To join the WTO, they have stated and said, hey, Iraq, if you want to join, make sure you have more than one revenue stream being just oil. You know, make sure you maybe have different levels of tariffs, taxations, and other overall, maybe other additional exports, you know, maybe like cement and maybe dates. You know, Iraq has a lot of dates off their palm trees that come out of their country. So, you know, just make sure you have additional revenue streams other than oil, and we'll let you join the WTO, along with, you know, get some of your laws done that pertain to the tariffs aspect. You know, get some of your laws done, and we'll let you in, we'll let you join. And at the end of the day, that's kind of what's being worked on for Iraq to join the WTO, is that right there. Granting a license to Al Musawa Exchange Company. We can look at this. So this is not real critical. It's just another exchange company that was granted a license and received a license, okay, to basically do exchange in the country of Iraq. Not critical to our studies. We actually looked at this one. We can definitely look at it again. It doesn't hurt to sometimes cover things twice. So again, this has to do with Savaya going to Iraq. The critical piece, again, they're hiding the date on this from us as to when Savaya is going to Iraq. Okay. So again, they're hiding the date for us. The most current information we have is sometime after Christmas. And they're telling you right here that Savaya going to Iraq or Baghdad to have these discussions with them will happen in the next phase. That little statement or phrase of in the next phase means when Iraq's international. So if you want to know when the rate's going to change, find out when Savaya is going to Iraq, because they're hiding that date from you. It has everything to do with the rate change and Iraq going international. That right there, to me personally, with how I study, that is one of the very next critical pieces I want to know right there. I want to know that date that Mark Savaya is going to international. But again, the most latest information we have on that will be after Christmas. So I'm looking to see, will Savaya be going to Iraq somewhere around this weekend coming up? Okay. And you know what? Hold on. Before I go forward, let's talk about that for a second. Will the rate change this year or next year? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. I favor this year. I favor this year of 25 more than I do 2026. And let's talk about that for a second. Iraq, I keep showing you from so many different angles, they're working towards going international basically early at the beginning of next year. Okay. But let's talk about their government formation. The central bank is completely autonomous from the government. They can change rate whenever they want. Okay. What we don't know is do they perceive or deem the formation of the government as a level, being completed? Is that a level of stability regarding the rate change? We'll never know. We can't confirm. We have no way to verify that. But in a way, it does. Things that make sense to you and I don't necessarily make sense in Iraq, okay? But it does make sense for them to maybe change the rate before the government's done, formed, and complete. A reason why? They still have quite a bit of things they have to do after the rate changes. They have to approve 150 plus laws. One of those laws would be the 26 budget. That's a law, okay? They have to do that plus 150 plus additional laws. Now, I want you to realize something, though. Those of you not with me on Substack, I showed you yesterday. Here's what can happen in Iraq. They have 3 aspects of the government formation regarding the elections they have to do. They have to finish and complete the parliament. After they complete the parliament, they have to finish and complete the president of the country, then the prime minister, okay? At this very next session of parliament around the 29th, they could or might complete the formation of parliament. Once parliament is fully formed and complete, which could happen at their next session on the December 29th, parliament can resume having and holding sessions. Let's talk about that aspect for a second. Let's say, again, here's an example. Let's say they change the rate by this coming weekend. And then they turn around and have their session let's say they turn around and have and hold their session on the 29th, complete the parliament formation of the newly elected government, okay? Well, rates change as of the 29th, rates changed, and parliament's done and formed again. They can continue resuming having and holding sessions. So by very early January, they could start approving the 150 plus laws and approved the 2026 budget. Do you see how by changing the rate while the government's being formed, also while during the year of 25, while the government's being formed, makes the most sense because it allows them to hit the ground running. Otherwise, if they're waiting till the government's done and formed, they would probably be waiting until at least February. Okay. They'd probably be waiting till at least February to. What do you do? Give me 2 seconds, guys. Hold on. I got people asking some questions in the little chat box. Give me a second. I'm trying to answer some questions. There we go. All right. All right. Got the questions answered. So back to our studies. So we covered that. We covered why it makes more sense for them to change the rate sooner than later, or more of kind of during this period of 25 than it does going into 2026. It allows them to, again, just to simply hit the ground running. Here's an interesting article here that I found. Baghdad restores Armenian church after a 70-year wait. Let's look at this for a second here. Hold on. I'm just gonna do something here. I want to show you guys something. I'm just curious to see why would Iraq have waited 70 years to restore this setup here. Let me see what it says. Hold on. I'll show you guys in 2 seconds. I'll show you guys the screen on it. It says, very good question. This answer is not simply because they forgot. The 70-year delay is actually revealing when you place it under Iraq's political security international context, okay? Again, Iraq was under wars. They had extreme political corruption. The 2003 invasion, the Sectarian War, the ISIS war, all their political chaos, their corruption, their stability, all of that, not being international, being under UN sanctions, all of that. So what this is telling you right here, guys, it's telling you Iraq has achieved stability just like the UN did. Remember a couple days ago I showed you how the UN stated Iraq was a sovereign state? That's what this is admitting to you, okay? This is admitting stability and sovereignty. Iraq has cleaned up. They're rejoining the international world. That's what this is telling you. Very critical piece to your studies right here, okay? So just wanted you to see that. All right. Let's go to the next article here. Going international. We'll read the title first, and then we'll look at the... Says Iraq has to go... this is letting you know Iraq's going international as well, like the last article. It says integrity. Evaluates the use of electronic payment devices, points of sale. That's what POS is. It's point of sale like cash registers, cash payment, charging systems. At the Election Commission and the Ministry of Immigration. So this is used... These point of sale devices of being digital electronic are being used within the Ministry of Immigration, but the federal government is starting to use these more widely across the board. Okay, but it has everything to do with Iraq going and becoming international. And notice how, like I said, when Iraq tells you something, look at the timing at which they told you. They're telling you now, as you're approaching the end of 25, walking into the beginning of 2026 when they're going international, okay? Very critical. And here's another one. Same thing, points of sale and so forth, and digital electronic transactions. It says right here, the federal court approving electronic payment by collecting lawsuit fees starting next year. That's what I was trying to tell you. This is all timed of going electronic digital. It's an aspect of banking reforms getting implemented at the beginning of next year. That's why I can't stress to you enough. They're going international next year, beginning of 2026. We just don't know when the rate's going to change. Okay, that's the unknown piece to this puzzle. It could be somewhere around this year, ending of 25. It could be around somewhere in January. Nobody's going to know. If they told you that, they're lying to you. Okay, but I just wanted you to see all this. Very critical to our studies. But again, for me personally, again, my opinion doesn't mean I'm right. Nobody's ever been right in this. The way I study, the way I think, it just would make more, but again, in common sense, need not apply in Iraq. It makes more sense for them to change the rate sometime now during this period of 25, okay, that way, because once their parliament's fully done and approved, and if they are at their next session on December 29th, they can hit the ground running, start resuming holding parliament sessions as they move forward into January, getting all outstanding items done sooner than later so that they can hit the ground running, okay? That's just the angle I'm approaching it from with my personal studies and thoughts. All right, this is just me being sarcastic because I've been trying to tell you guys, and I've even had a few people doubting me, but now I've got so much confirmation out there that nobody can even argue or question anything anymore. I said this dude, and I'm referencing myself, this dude told us next year was the new international beginning. Now Iraq is basically telling you the same thing. Boom. It says a new shift in customs. Again, this is Iraq admitting it to you. A new shift in customs procedures is expected at the beginning of next year because that's when they're going international. Okay? Right there at the beginning of next year. Can't make this crap up. And here's the key points. Here's what it has to do with Iraq going international right there. Okay? If you want to read all that, consider joining the Substack forum. I will put a link in this video. Give me 2 seconds here, guys. I'm answering a question. Okay. All right. Where did we leave off at here? Okay, so here's another article that has to do with the preparations for the the preparations for the budget. It says Soudani directs the measurement of financial impact of rationalization spending and maximizing revenues. That has everything to do with the budget along with their deficit overall and the banking reforms and so forth, but it leads mostly into the deficit and the budget. But a deficit is an aspect of the budget. That's all that is, okay? After Christmas, U.S. envoy coming to Baghdad. Again, that's me. Those are my comments where I said after Christmas in parentheses. U.S. envoy coming to Baghdad because that's the very last thing they've told us about the timing of this. So, anyway, there's no critical details in this. I've looked through this very meticulously, and there's no dates in here. Okay, it's all generic. Again, that's the number one thing they're hiding from you because that's why they even told you in the very first article I showed you in this video where it said U.S. envoys coming to Baghdad, but it referenced in the next phase. That means when Iraq's international, okay? And that's the reason why they're not going to give you the date. Or that what they're going to do is they're going to give you the date upon very short notice. I'll give you an example. So let's say he's going to come to Iraq somewhere around this weekend. You know, again, the next session of Parliament for Iraq will be on the 29th. Okay, here's a calendar on the screen on the right edge. Okay, so he's coming there, you know, around this weekend, which would be I don't know, let's say somewhere around let's say he's going there let's say he's going to be there on the 29th for the next session of Parliament, okay? So let's say he's going to arrive maybe on the 28th. They might not tell you till this coming Thursday or Friday or even Saturday. They might just give you like a 1 to 3 day, very short minimal notice. Think about that, okay? When they do things like that and give you very short notice, it's because they don't want you to know far out in advance. All we have presently, though, is sometime after Christmas, okay? So me personally, I'm looking very much to see when that date is. That's critical to my own personal studies and thought process. Iraq's parliament can resume once formed after the 29th, and that's kind of what they might be doing on the 29th, is completing the formation of their overall parliament. So, guys, that is it. That is it for our studies today. That's everything that is present right now. So, again, you're welcome to go over to Substack. You can see all these articles in great detail with a very thorough analysis on them. And if you guys notice, like, there's some other content creators that I want you guys to think about something. There's other content creators that might put themselves in their videos, and that's great. That's a personal approach. I respect that, but I want you to think about something. When they've taken the time to maybe print off information, again, the camera's on them. The camera's not on their work, okay? When the camera's on them and they're just talking to you, you're not seeing their work. So how do you, and again, a lot of them, when they do that, they put their own personal twist and spin on the information. When they put their own twist and spin on the information, that becomes their opinion. How do you know it's truthful and accurate? When you can't, first off, you can't even see the work, you just see them. You can't contest it, you can't argue it. How do you know it's truthful and credible? I want you to think about that. How do you know the work is truthful and credible when they're just sharing stuff to you by just showing you an image of them, like a selfie in their video camera? I show you guys the work right on the frickin' screen, so you guys know the accuracy and credibility. There's no twist, there's no spin. This isn't even opinion. And if it is opinion, I tell you, but I try to do my best to not put twists and spins and keep my opinions out. That's important to you guys for credibility and accuracy. Friends, hope you have an amazing week. Take care and thank you for joining. Let's end this video.